picking a section of my new book in progress to read that was short enough and close enough to the beginning of the book to be accessible in this form was a challenge, because the book is, it builds upon itself. And the further into the book you get, the more you might pick up the book in the middle and go, what is even going on? To make it short, basically this is, what I endeavored to do was to take all of my research into Paleo-European sort of knowledge we know about Paleo-European peoples, like 20,000 years ago, people who painted the caves in Lascaux and stuff like that, and bring it forward into a post-apocalyptic ice age environment where humanity had reached incredible heights technologically and then fell 10,000 years ago, and now a Stone Age people exists. But not to make it cheesy like Flintstones or something like that. You think cavemen, you think loincloths and mammoths, but I wanted to do dignity, in a sense, to our ancestors, because from all the research that I have seen, there were some very egalitarian cultures that long ago, and I think that's awesome. So basically, I'll go ahead and read this section that takes place. Another thing I'm trying to do with this is I wanted to make the book as open to the reader as possible, in that the main character is never really described, and it's not done in such a way that it's awkward. It's more like you're in the role. You are the main character without it being written in second person, because I find second person distracting. Okay. The funeral for my father stretches on through the coldest parts of the night. Elders sit around the fire telling stories from the stars until only embers are left of my father and his funeral bed. Others of our tribe come and go at intervals, some retiring early, others coming late into the night to pay their respects and to hear a few tales of older worlds, especially of the last world, before Spitfire came, before Spitfire broke the shining cities and used their ashes to build the world we know. Near the end of the last world, everyone was a shaman. Soars as Falcon looks at me as she tells her story to those gathered around the fire. They were marked, like us. She pulls back a sleeve and shows the intricate line work cut in shining black on the underside of her arm. Their gods were many, and gave their brightly colored blood freely, seeking to enlighten everyone. No one ever died or ever grew old or got sick. All the secret knowledge was known to everyone, and the shaman race of the last world spoke freely with the stars, and with all the dead that came before. And then came Spitfire, another elder says. I know him, recognize him as sits with lions, a warrior with a proud past who took the rights to become a shaman after one of his legs was mangled during a god hunt. His blue eyes are so icy and steely that I cannot help but shiver and look away when his gaze passes over me. The ancestors of the last world were not all of one tribe, though the gods of that world tried very hard to make it so, soars as Falcon adds, placing a hand on Sits with Lion's wrist in a gentle, silencing gesture. Spitfire was called into our world by a tribe without shamans, a tribe that believed we should not bear sacred marks upon our skin or talk to our dead. Spitfire the Devourer, another shaman says, a bald and black-scalped elder called Mouse. Mouse rocks gently as he speaks, but does not stand, does not look at anyone, only seems to lose himself in the intricate designs etched across his gnarled hands. Before Soars's Falcon can speak again, he whispers, Spitfire the Dissolver. The tribe without shamans tied Spitfire to a mountain with sinews they pulled from the sun and tortured him. Soars's Falcon spreads her fingers across the sky as if she could thread them through the stars and tie the night together. When they finally cut the sinews and set him free, he was so angry that he stomped and roared and howled until the whole world broke apart. Many people from many tribes died, and the shamans could no longer speak to the stars or to the dead. Spitfire was so angry that he devoured all the gods, and even devoured the sun itself, leaving the world in cold darkness. When he finally calmed, the world was empty and dead. The tribe that had tortured him was gone, and the few shamans of that time who still lived were scattered and frightened. In the great darkness, it was Spitfire who spoke to them, who guided them together, and who rebuilt the world for them. A new sun was planted in the sky from a seed of the last world sun that Spitfire picked from his teeth. And as light returned to the world, even the stars began to speak our stories again. But all was not well, Sits with Lions rumbles. There's a long silence where the other elders watch him as he pokes the funeral fire, stirring the embers. Spitfire rebuilt the world because of guilt, not because of kindness. He had ideas about how the new world should be run, and he was afraid of being tortured again if our ancestors became too wise or too strong. He spoke to them and filled their minds with so many voices that they could not think of anything but eating and mating. The shamans heard him the loudest, and many became unable to think at all because of all the noise he roared into their ears. There was one shaman who could hear past the noise, Sorza's falcon smiles, holding up a single finger. She was the first to teach others how to hear and how to think calmly, even when Spitfire roared his loudest. It was she that took Spitfire's blood to mark herself, as those that came before had marked themselves with the blood of their gods. In doing so, she gained a kind of hold over him. Mother of shamans, Mouse whispers in the pause. His hands tremble, seem to glitter in the firelight. Mother of new gods. Sorza's falcon nods at Mouse, reaching out to touch his face. With childlike eyes, Mouse looks up at her, stares as she continues the tale. For many snowy nights they struggled together, Spitfire and the first to take his blood. Sorza's falcon speaks, as if speaking to Mouse, as if they are the only two people in the world. Each night, Spitfire grew stronger and more angry. By the 8th night, he was so ferociously angry that Mother of Shamans thought he might break apart the world again, but instead he turned all of his rage inward and broke himself. With a great crack of thunder, he tore himself apart, and all the gods he had eaten came rushing out of him into the new world. These were not the gods of the old world, though. Sits with Lions, looks around the fire, lets his stare linger in the eyes of anyone who dares not turn away. The many nights they had spent in Spitfire's belly had changed them. Their colorful blood became dark, dark as the blood we mark ourselves with today. Our gods, the new gods, like Icus, Urson, Vitsena, and all the rest, no longer seek to better our lives and enlighten us. They are wild, feral things now. They are their own masters, forever touched by Spitfire's darkness, but they are gods still, and must be respected, especially when we hunt them and kill them. In the red light of the dying embers, I see Sorza's falcon as she looks at me again, continues as if speaking directly to me. It was Mother of Shamans who taught the first of our ancestors to hunt and how to mark ourselves with the blood of the new gods. In her life, she was marked with the blood of 8 of the new gods, and the stories about her achievements are many. She never lost touch with the voice of Spitfire, and even today he whispers many secret things to us as shamans while he slumbers as a memory among the stars.
How far along are you on this, and when can we get it?
Okay, so when I first started this project at the beginning of last month, I thought it was going to be 500 words. It's now at closing in on 20,000. I'm aiming to finish it by the end of the year, and I think that at the rate that I'm going, which is about 5,000 words a week, of course, there's time for editing and all that stuff. I'm hoping to get it done by the end of the year. I should be able to get it done by the end of the year. Coming up quick. It's I don't know where it's going to stop. I mean, I've even got some notes for a sequel, so who knows? Thank you so much.
You guys questions?